Welcome back. Mitzvahs 48 and 49. We're going to discuss the mitzvah of shechita, of ritual slaughter. Let's take a look inside first. We're going to read through both mitzvahs. It is a positive commandment to ritually slaughter a domestic or untamed animal or fowl if one wishes to eat of their flesh. For Scripture says, you shall slaughter some of your herd and your flock as I have commanded, which teaches us that Moses, our teacher, was instructed orally the laws of shechita, ritual slaughtering, that it must be at the gullet and the windpipe, cutting most of one tube in the fowl and most of both in the animal. We'll explain all this later. And about pausing, pressing the knife, inserting it under cover, cutting it aslant, and tearing loose, that these disqualify shechita. It is enforced everywhere and always for both man and woman. We'll talk about some of these particulars soon. Mitzvah number 49, it is a positive commandment to cover the blood of the shechita of pure, kosher, untamed animal or fowl. For Scripture says about an untamed animal or fowl, he shall put out its blood and cover it with the earth. It is necessary to put earth underneath, then do the ritual slaughtering, and then cover it. For the term with earth denotes earth underneath and above. It is in effect everywhere at every time for both man and woman. Okay, kosher meat means shechted meat, or one of the big things it means, besides the blood situation, right, is that it was properly slaughtered at the neck, back and forth motion, perfectly sharp knife, cutting the majority of the gullet and the windpipe. These are the basics of shechita. Where do they come from? They were commanded to Moses at Sinai. Right? You will not find in the Torah where it says specifically how to do this. However, it says very clearly, right, that you should sacrifice the way that God has instructed you to sacrifice. Is that right? That's the verse that we quoted. So we know that there was a command. That command was given to Moses orally and passed along. And again, it's those basics. We understand that this is arguably the most humane way to kill an animal. There are others who argue otherwise, but the evidence is quite mixed, quite frankly. And certainly in the absence of technology, there's no question that this is the most humane way in which to kill an animal. A couple of other points about this. Since we're talking about kosher, let's talk about glatt kosher, right? Something that many of us didn't know existed until we started to get a little older, right? Mazek glatt kosher. Okay, so here's the story. There are let me back up. If an animal, after being slaughtered and inspected, it turns out that there is a defect in the animal that would have killed it within a year, that animal is a treifa. That's where the word treifa comes from. Okay, so if an animal has a treifa, so that means that it's not a kosher, right? It has one of these. So one of the signs is a hole in the lung. If it has a hole in the lung, it was gone. It's a goner. It was a goner. You can't eat it. It's not kosher. However, what you often find is that there are holes in the lung which then heal, and there's scar tissue over them, right? So there's still no hole in the lung. The animal would have been fine. It healed, correct? But there were holes, right? So there are little scar tissue on the lungs. So if there's scar tissue on the lung is not smooth, right? Normally a lung, if you feel the lung from the outside, it would be smooth. If there's scar tissue there, it's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be glatt. If it's smooth, it never had a hole in the lung. Oh, you certainly don't have to worry, right? But if it's not smooth, if there are scar tissue, do you have to worry? Maybe there was a hole, maybe there was a hole, maybe there was a hole. Okay. This is a chumrah, this is a stringency of quite late introduction. And amongst Sephardim, if I remember correctly, it never existed. But either way, it's a rather late innovation, glatt kosher. It's a stringency. And there is such a thing as kosher meat that's not glatt kosher. Glatt kosher is not the only kosher meat in the universe. I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know or assumed, right? Many good people eat non-glatt meat. All right, so much about glatt kosher. The shechita must have been orally communicated. How do you know it was orally communicated? This isn't so much of a joke, but it's a little bit of a joke, sent in a joking manner. How do you know it was orally communicated? Because that's why all the Hasidim can't seem to agree on it. Right? If it was written down, they'd know what to do. But the Hasidim with their chumras is this one has this chumrah, this one has that chumrah, that one has that chumrah. They're super, super, super kosher meat. Glat, 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 ay, 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 ay. Okay. It's okay. If you're not eating glat meat, you're fine. Just eat kosher meat. That's what's important. Okay. By the way, the covering of the blood, kisoy adam, that's something you wouldn't know about unless you actually went to a schlachthouse or you've seen slaughter happen, but they put sawdust or dirt on the ground, and after the shechita, the blood goes there, and then the blood is covered up. It's deemed more respectful, and it's a Torah commandment, so we have to do it. Okay, folks, the kosher our parents kept is pretty kosher. They didn't have glat. It's okay. I mean, I buy glat meat. I use only glat meat, but that's by coincidence of the fact of where I shop. So don't let anybody drive you crazy. Thanks. Have a good day.